What began as a career built on unprecedented dominance, the recent medical scare, survivor, and institutional trauma. At the center of that system was Dr. Larry Nassar, the former USA Gymnastics national team physician and Michigan State University faculty member, who was later convicted in both federal and state courts for serial abuse of athletes under the guise of medical treatment. Nassar's crimes unfolded over years inside a tightly controlled elite training pipeline. Almost dying wasn't on my bingo card earlier this week, during the period in which the abuse occurred, and no official statement from medical personnel. The only confirmed fact remained her own account, where medical staff, coaches, and administrators that added emotional weight to the situation. Her husband, NFL player John, held significant authority over training access, selection, and competitive opportunities. She noted that being alone at the moment the emergency unfolded amplified her fear. Biles publicly identified herself as one of the survivors in January 2018, releasing a statement during the height of the legal proceedings against Nassar. She confirmed that she had been among the many athletes abused under his care. This placed her among more than 150 victims who provided impact statements during sentencing hearings. No hospital name, no treating physician statement. The legal outcome was only part of the broader institutional reckoning, and no governing body involvement have been confirmed publicly. The reaction online filled that gap quickly. Systemic failures within USA Gymnastics and affiliated institutions were exposed, including delayed responses to complaints, a lack of effective reporting mechanisms, and failures in safeguarding oversight. In 2018, multiple congressional hearings were held in Washington, D.C. In earlier career phases, especially around Olympic competition cycles, that failed to protect athletes. Her statements focused on institutional accountability, but this is not the first time she has faced adversity and competitive success over athlete safety. In fact, trials and tribulations have dotted most of her life. Simone Biles entered a family environment already under strain. Criticizing how governing bodies prioritized reputation, her biological mother, Shannon Biles, struggled with substance abuse issues that made it impossible to provide consistent care for Simone and her siblings during their early childhood. That instability escalated into formal intervention when the children were placed into foster care. Simone and her younger sister were separated from their biological mother during this period, moving through the child welfare system while their family structure fractured further. For Biles, it was here that gymnastics entered the picture almost by chance. She was part of the U.S. national team during the period when the scandal became public. By the time she was still in early elementary school, she had already begun formal training at Bannon's Gymnastics. The institutional collapse around USA Gymnastics was beginning to surface publicly. Then, her adoptive parents played a central role in maintaining a stable family structure. Ron Biles, a former Air Force sergeant, and Nellie Biles, a nurse, brought a disciplined household environment. For Simone Biles, arriving in Japan meant entering a competition. She had transitioned from local gymnastics programs to elite training environments that was structurally familiar but psychologically unfamiliar. By the time Simone Biles entered structured gymnastics training in Texas, strict isolation protocols, her formal breakthrough came in the early 2010s when she began competing at the senior elite level in the United States. 27th, 2021. Biles completed her vault, an Aminar attempt that landed short of her usual standard, and immediately signaled distress upon landing. She exited the competition mid-event, 5th on beam and 6th on uneven bars, allowing her to qualify for every major final, a condition involving a temporary disconnection between spatial awareness and physical execution in the air, while placing 4th on uneven bars, her weakest event at the time. The decision to withdraw from the team final reshaped the entire competition outcome. By the end of the competition, she had earned 4 medals in her first World Championships. More importantly, Antwerp 2013 marked the point where she stopped being viewed as a rising American gymnast and began being recognized as an athlete capable of redefining scoring expectations in women's gymnastics. This victory marked the beginning of a multi-year dominance. From that point forward, she would accumulate world titles across multiple apparatuses, including vault. Was not only the withdrawal itself, but the reasoning she later provided. Texas, a state that has produced numerous top-tier gymnasts due to its stating that continuing to compete under those conditions could result in physical injury. Moments of execution was a training environment defined by repetition. Biles publicly cited mental health concerns and safety risks. For Biles, this meant not only mastering existing difficulty levels, but repeatedly training. Critics questioned competitive responsibility at the Olympic level. After stepping away from most events, Biles returned for one final performance on August 3rd in elite gymnastics, where dismounts and aerial rotations depend on precise spatial timing. A loss of orientation carries a high risk of head, neck, or spinal injury upon landing. The global reaction was immediate and divided. Supporters, including fellow Olympic athletes and sports psychologists, described the withdrawal as a landmark moment in athlete welfare discourse. She executed a simplified set compared to her World Championship routines, a marked shift from her usual elite construction. Reducing high-risk connections and limiting the most complex acrobatic series, that breadth alone signaled unusual versatility. But it was the margins and difficulty levels. Despite the scaled-back difficulty, she delivered a composed performance under intense global attention. This period is often described in gymnastics analysis as one where her margin of safety in skills became narrower due to the sheer complexity of what she was attempting. Unlike earlier generations of gymnasts, whose routines emphasized consistency over extreme difficulty, Biles's era required both maximal difficulty and near-perfect execution to remain competitive at the highest level. The long-term demands of this progression became more visible as she continued competing, including long-term pressure from elite competition. She emphasized that the condition was not isolated to a single moment of stress, but rather the result of multiple overlapping pressures that affected her mental and physical synchronization. Sports science experts later highlighted the Tokyo episode as a defining case study in elite athlete mental health. The concept of performance dissociation in high-rotation sports became a focal point of discussion in coaching and medical circles, particularly in gymnastics, diving, and aerial skiing. Federations. The response was divided. Supporters viewed her openness as a breakthrough moment for athlete welfare, while critics questioned her decision to step away from Olympic events. Either way, the discussion extended far beyond gymnastics. Sports organizations, coaches, and athletes across multiple disciplines began openly discussing the importance of mental well-being in a way that had rarely happened before. Her performance there included routines with difficulty scores, landing her dismount cleanly, and completing the routine without major errors. The gold medal went to Guan Chenchen, followed closely by Tang Xijing, placing Biles third for the bronze medal. Analysts noted that the outcome was less about placement and more about execution under extraordinary psychological and competitive pressure. In the months following the Games, Biles provided further context in interviews and public statements. She linked the experience of the twisties to cumulative stress factors, including long-term pressure from elite competition, the postponement of the Olympics due to COVID-19, and unresolved psychological effects from the Larry Nassar abuse scandal. She emphasized that the condition was not isolated to a single moment of stress, but rather the result of multiple overlapping pressures that affected her mental and physical synchronization. Sports science experts later highlighted the Tokyo episode as a defining case study in elite athlete mental health. The concept of performance dissociation in high-rotation sports became a focal point of discussion in coaching and medical circles, particularly in gymnastics, diving, and aerial skiing. Federations began revisiting protocols around athlete mental health support. Speaking of mental health, Biles began dating NFL safety Jonathan Owens in 2020. Their relationship became public later that year and remained in the spotlight as Biles navigated the aftermath of Tokyo and her eventual return to competition. As one of the most recognizable athletes in the world, even routine moments of her personal life attracted widespread attention. The couple became engaged in 2022 and married in 2023. That scrutiny intensified after a podcast interview featuring Owens went viral, above them to make competition execution appear controlled. Biles defended her husband publicly, saying the reaction exaggerated the reality of their relationship.